I never meant to surprise my son. I was not that kind of mother. I believed in schedules, polite warnings, and boundaries. But fear has a way of breaking habits you thought were permanent. My name is Eleanor, and on a gray Tuesday morning, I woke up with a tightness in my chest that would not go away. It wasn't pain, just pressure, the kind that whispers instead of screams. Daniel hadn't answered my calls in 4 days. That alone wasn't unusual. My son had always been careless with time, especially mine. But what troubled me was Hannah's silence. My daughter-in-law never forgot to text back. Not once in 6 years. So when her cheerful good morning, Mom stopped appearing on my phone, something inside me shifted. By noon, I had packed a small suitcase. I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself I would feel foolish when Daniel laughed and said, "Mom, we're fine." Still, I booked the flight. The airport smelled like burnt coffee and impatience. People rushed past me with rolling suitcases and loud conversations, each of them certain where they were going. I wasn't. In my carry-on bag were 2 things meant for Hannah: a knitted scarf, half-finished, pale blue, and a tin of lemon cookies she loved. She once told me lemon reminded her of safety. I didn't know then how much she would need it. As the plane lifted, my phone stayed silent. No missed calls. No messages. A mother's intuition is not magic. It is memory, pattern, love trained by years of observation. And every instinct in my body was screaming that something was wrong. Daniel and Hannah lived in a townhouse just outside the city. I bought it for them 3 years after their wedding. Not as a gift, but as insurance. I wanted Hannah to feel secure. I wanted my son to feel responsible. When I reached the door, I noticed it was unlocked. That should have been my first warning. Inside, the house was cold. The heater was off, even though winter pressed against the windows. Dirty dishes were stacked in the sink. Empty bottles stood like witnesses on the counter. This was not Hannah's doing. She was careful, orderly, quietly proud of her home. On the dining table lay unopened mail, utility notices, medical bills, envelopes stamped final reminder. My hands began to shake. I moved through the house slowly, afraid of what I might find. In the bathroom cabinet, I saw them. Prescription bottles. Hannah's name. Still sealed. Dust clung to the plastic like proof of neglect. A knock startled me. An older woman stood in the doorway, clutching her cardigan. "You must be Daniel's mother," she said softly. "Yes," I replied. "Where are they?" She hesitated. "Your son hasn't been around." "But Hannah..." Her voice dropped. "They took her by ambulance 2 nights ago." The room tilted. She collapsed. Fever. Dehydrated. No one answered when the paramedics asked for next of kin. I don't remember thanking her. I only remember walking back to my suitcase and taking out the scarf. Still unfinished. Still warm from my hands. The ICU is a quiet place where time loses meaning. Machines breathe for people. Lights never fully dim. Hope exists in measured doses. Hannah lay still, thinner than I remembered, her skin pale beneath tangled wires. The doctor spoke gently, but his words were sharp. "She was alone too long," he said. "If she'd arrived a day later, we might not be talking." I held her hand and felt something cold and terrible settle inside me. Where was my son? I stepped outside for air. That's when I heard the music. Loud, careless, alive. A luxury sedan pulled up, midnight blue, freshly washed. The car I had bought Daniel. He was laughing. 2 young women leaned out of the windows, shouting over the bass. He didn't look at the hospital. Not once. My phone vibrated. "Mom, I'm with Hannah at the hospital. Haven't left her side. Please pray." I stared at the screen, and in that moment, the sun I raised disappeared. People assume that once someone loses everything, they disappear quietly. They don't. Loss doesn't humble everyone. For some, it sharpens desperation into something dangerous. Daniel did not vanish. He circled. It started with messages. At first, they sounded remorseful. I know I failed you. I'm trying to get help. Please let me see her. Just once. I didn't reply. Then the tone changed. You've turned everyone against me. You're enjoying this. You don't get to erase me. I still didn't reply. Silence had become my shield. One evening, as Hannah slept peacefully for the first time without machines, a nurse pulled me aside. Your son has been calling, she said quietly. He knows the shift patterns. He's asking questions. My stomach tightened. I thanked her and made another call, this time to hospital administration. By morning, Daniel's name was flagged. He was no longer allowed anywhere near the building. 2 nights later, as I walked Hannah's belongings to my car, I sensed movement. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. Mom. Daniel stepped into the light. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, thinner than I'd ever seen him. For a split second, instinct surged forward. Then memory stopped it. Leave, I said. I just want to talk. You've done enough talking. Rain began to fall. I slept in my car last night, he said bitterly. The one you had towed. I said nothing. He stepped closer. You chose her over me. No, I corrected calmly. I chose right over wrong. That was when his face twisted. She's fragile, he said suddenly. So dependent. Anything could happen to someone like that. The air changed. Every maternal instinct inside me transformed, not into fear, but resolve. You will never go near her again, I said. If you do, I will destroy you legally, publicly, and permanently. He laughed. You think people will believe you? I looked at him. I don't need them to believe me, I said. I have evidence. His laughter stopped. I hadn't told anyone about the journal, about the financial records, about the voicemail he left while Hannah lay unconscious, complaining about money. But I had compiled everything. Dates, documents, medical records. One folder. Prepared quietly. Waiting. The next morning, I filed a formal report. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Factual. Neglect. Financial abuse. Endangerment. The officer listened carefully. This may take time, he said. I have time, I replied. Hannah was discharged 2 weeks later. We didn't go back to the townhouse right away. We went somewhere safer. Somewhere new. She walked slowly, leaning on my arm, embarrassed by her weakness. There's nothing weak about surviving, I told her. She cried in the car. I held her hand. A week after we settled in, a letter arrived. Daniel's handwriting. I didn't open it at first. When I finally did, I found no apology, only blame. You ruined me. You stole my life. You'll regret this. I folded the letter and placed it in the folder. Evidence doesn't need commentary. Months passed. Then came the summons. Daniel was being charged, not heavily, not dramatically, but enough. Fraud. Endangerment. He sat across the room from me in court. Smaller. Quieter. He didn't look at me. When the judge spoke Hannah's name, his shoulders slumped. Truth has weight. After court, Daniel approached me. Security watched closely. Mom, he said quietly, I don't hate you anymore. I nodded. I know. I just don't have anyone. I met his eyes for the last time. That's the consequence of who you chose to be. Then I walked away. Hannah grew stronger. She laughed again. She planted herbs on the balcony of her new home. One evening, she said softly, You didn't save me. You reminded me I was allowed to save myself. I smiled. That was enough. I no longer checked my phone for Daniel's name. I no longer wondered if I was cruel. Some doors are not slammed. They are closed gently and never reopened. Daniel stood frozen in the hospital corridor, his hand still half raised from where security had stopped him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't being rescued. Not by charm. Not by lies. Not by his mother. His face shifted rapidly. Anger, disbelief, Calculation, like a gambler desperately searching for one last winning move. "You can't do this," he hissed, lowering his voice. "I'm her husband." I looked at him the way one looks at a stranger who shares familiar features. "She asked not to see you," I said. That was a lie. Hannah hadn't asked for anything. She was barely conscious. But sometimes truth isn't about words, it's about protection. Daniel laughed sharply, shaking his head. "You're bluffing. You always bluff when you're emotional." I folded my hands in my lap. "I'm not emotional anymore." That was when fear entered his eyes. Real fear. He stepped closer, lowering his voice into the tone he used as a child when he broke something expensive. "Mom, listen. I messed up. I know that. But we're family. You don't destroy family." I held his gaze. Family doesn't abandon a sick woman to freeze alone. The words landed harder than a slap. He looked away. For a moment, just a moment, I saw something like shame. Then it vanished. "Fine," he said quickly. "Let's be practical. Give me some money. I'll leave town. You won't see me again." He said it like a business deal. I realized then that he didn't understand love at all. "Daniel," I said softly, "you don't leave wreckage and demand severance pay." His face darkened. "You owe me," he snapped. "You raised me like this. You spoiled me. You taught me I'd never fall." He wasn't wrong. And that was the most painful truth of all. That afternoon, my lawyer called me back. "Eleanor," Marianne said, "there's more." She explained slowly, carefully. Daniel had tried to take loans using the townhouse as collateral, forged signatures, fake authorizations. If those lenders hadn't flagged the paperwork, I closed my eyes. He wasn't just careless. He was dangerous. While Daniel sat outside the ICU waiting for me to cool down, I authorized new locks on the house, security cameras, alarm system, police notification. By evening, he had nowhere to go. He didn't know that yet. I rewrote my will that night, every asset redirected, not to charity, not to distant relatives, but to a trust for Hannah, medical care, housing, independence. Daniel was removed entirely. I signed with a steady hand. When Daniel learned, really learned, it was in the hospital hallway. He dropped to his knees. People stared. "Mama," he sobbed loudly, "please, I'll change. I swear. I'll work. I'll go to therapy." He clutched my coat like a lifeline. This time, I felt nothing. I had mourned him already. "Get up," I said quietly. He didn't. Security approached again. "Escort him out," I said. His screams echoed down the corridor. He went to the townhouse that night. Keys didn't work. Police were already there. His belongings, 2 bags, were handed to him. That was his life. 2 bags. He tried to withdraw money. The card was blocked. The ATM kept it. I received the notification while sitting beside Hannah's bed. I didn't smile. I exhaled. 3 days later, Hannah opened her eyes. She whispered, "Is he gone?" "Yes," I said. She cried, not loudly, not dramatically, just relief. Recovery was slow, but healing had begun. Not just for her, for me. I learned that motherhood is not endless sacrifice. It is responsibility, with limits. When security stopped Daniel at the ICU doors, something finally broke in him. Not guilt, not fear for his wife. Control. He had lived his entire adult life believing the world would bend because I would bend it for him. And now, for the first time, The rules did not recognize his name. "Get your hands off me," Daniel shouted, trying to shove past the guard. "I'm her husband. I have rights." The security officer didn't raise his voice. "You are disturbing a critical patient. Step back." Inside the room, the heart monitor screamed faster. I stood up. "Take him away," I said quietly. Daniel turned to me, stunned. "Mama," he said, as if he had misheard. The guard pushed him toward the corridor. Daniel resisted, shoes slipping on the polished floor. "You can't do this," he yelled. "She's mine." Mine. That word echoed in my head like a verdict. I followed him down a quieter hall, away from patients and staff. He paced like a trapped animal, running his hands through his hair. "You've lost your mind," he said. "You're punishing me over nothing." I leaned against the wall. "Nothing," I repeated. He scoffed. "She's dramatic. She's weak. Always sick, always complaining." I needed space. "Space," I said. "She almost died." He waved it off. "She's alive, isn't she?" That was the moment I knew. Not hoped, not suspected. Knew. I had not raised a selfish man. I had raised a dangerous one. I opened my purse and removed a folded paper. "Read," I said. He snatched it from my hand. His eyes skimmed the page, then slowed, then widened. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." "The townhouse," I said evenly, "is no longer yours. You are not on the deed. You are not on the lease. You are not welcome there." "You can't," he said, backing away. "She'll never agree." "She already has," I replied. "Through me." His breathing turned shallow. What if she doesn't make it?" he asked suddenly. The question landed like poison. I stared at him. "That," I said quietly, "is the most disgusting thing you have ever thought." I pulled out another document. "My will," I said. He laughed hysterically. "You're bluffing." I pointed to the highlighted paragraph. "All assets," he read aloud, voice cracking, "to be donated to charitable organizations." He looked up. "You're cutting me out." "Yes." "You'd rather give your money to strangers." "I'd rather give it to beings incapable of cruelty." His face hardened. "I'll contest this," he snapped. "I'll say you're unstable, old, confused." I nodded. "You can try. I have a psychiatric evaluation dated yesterday stating I'm of sound mind." His shoulders slumped. The last card had been played. He bolted. Straight for the townhouse. I knew he would. Desperation makes men predictable. By the time Daniel arrived, the locksmith was already there. 2 officers supervised. My lawyer, Mary Ann, stood firm in the hallway. Daniel charged in, shouting, demanding entry. "Get out," Mary Ann said calmly. "You no longer live here." He screamed. "This is theft." "No," one officer replied. "This is enforcement." They handed him 2 trash bags. His clothes. Nothing else. The door closed behind him. The lock clicked. That sound ended a lifetime. Outside, Daniel staggered to the ATM. The card I once gave him, linked to my account, was his last hope. He inserted it. The machine swallowed it, Card retained. Account closed. He slid down the wall, crying, begging, alone. At the same moment, Hannah slept peacefully for the first time in days. Her breathing steady. The crisis had passed. One life saved. I didn't reply to my son's message. I didn't correct the lie. I didn't ask questions. I stood there on the hospital steps, staring at the place where the car had vanished, feeling something inside me turn cold and solid, like stone settling at the bottom of a river. I had spent decades protecting Daniel from consequences. That protection ended right there. People think anger arrives loudly. It doesn't. Anger, real anger, arrives quietly, with clarity. I went back inside the hospital and sat down in a plastic chair near the vending machines. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the space. A nurse passed by, nodding politely. No one knew that a line had just been crossed. I pulled my phone from my purse and opened the registration documents for the car. Owner, Eleanor Moore. I remembered Daniel teasing me when I insisted on keeping it that way. Mom, don't you trust me? I had laughed it off. I trust paperwork more. That decision saved a life. I dialed the police non-emergency line. My voice didn't shake. I need to report a stolen vehicle, I said. They asked for details. I gave them calmly. Make, model, license plate. Do you know who took the vehicle? The dispatcher asked. I closed my eyes. No, I said, and for the first time in my life, that answer felt honest. Next, I called Mary Ann Feld, my attorney of 25 years. She answered on the second ring. Eleanor, what's happened? I need documents drafted tonight, I said. Property transfer. Immediate. A pause. Eleanor, are you sure? Yes. I gave her Hannah's full name, not Daniel's. Another pause, longer this time. I'll be in my office at dawn, Mary Ann said quietly. Bring everything. I returned to Hannah's bedside. Machines breathed for her. I talked softly about nothing important. The weather, a recipe, a silly story from years ago. I didn't know if she could hear me, but I wanted her to know she wasn't alone anymore. My phone buzzed again. Daniel, voicemail. I listened to it once. Mama, something's wrong. I'm in trouble. The cops think I stole the car. Fix this. Call them. Please. Not a word about Hannah. I deleted the message. The call came at 2:17 a.m. Ms. Moore, the officer said, we've detained the vehicle. The driver claims to be your son. Yes, I replied. If you can find permission, we can release him with a citation. I imagined Hannah's room, the machines, the silence. My son, I said slowly, is inside this hospital sitting beside his wife. The man you have is not him. There was silence on the line. I understand, the officer said finally. When I hung up, I felt no triumph. Only inevitability. At sunrise, I walked into Mary Ann's office without having slept. She slid a folder across the desk. The townhouse, she said, transferred solely to Hannah. And Daniel? I asked. Removed from all rights. I signed. Each stroke of the pen felt like closing a door I had kept open too long. Later that day, I returned to the house to collect Hannah's identification. That's when I found the journal, tucked into a drawer. I didn't want to read it, but I did. Page after page of quiet suffering, money taken, medicine delayed, heat turned off to save cash. I closed the notebook with shaking hands. This wasn't neglect. It was abuse. 2 days later, Daniel walked into the hospital lobby like a man expecting applause. He looked thinner, dirtier, angry. "Mama," he said loudly, "what did you do?" I didn't stand. "Lower your voice," I said. "This is a hospital." He laughed nervously. "You embarrassed me. Fix it." "There is nothing to fix," I replied. "I sold the car." His smile vanished. "And the house," I continued. "It belongs to Hannah now." He lunged toward the ICU doors. Security stopped him. The monitor inside Hannah's room spiked. She heard him. That was the last thing he ever took from her.